Today, we're looking at the aardvark, Orycterapus afer. It's a truly extraordinary mammal, completely alone in its entire scientific order, Tubulidentata. Its impact across sub-Saharan Africa is just undeniable. But that brings us to our central question. Which of its contributions is fundamentally more critical to the environment? Is it the structural role as a keystone architect, or is it the foundational functional role as essential pest control? For me, it has to be the aardvark's architectural mastery. That's the higher-order ecological service.
And I'm going to argue for the primacy of that regulatory function. I think it's, unparalleled ability to maintain the health and stability of the ecosystem through what it eats. But that defines its ultimate value.
The most compelling evidence for the aardvark's importance, for me, lies in its physical labor. We call them the master digger for a very good reason. They excavate these sprawling subterranean complexes, burrows that can stretch over, 40 feet in length. When these burrows are abandoned, they become absolutely critical infrastructure. They're sort of a subterranean housing market, providing indispensable shelter for breeding, for protection, for species like warthogs, hyenas, pythons, even African wild dogs. This structural legacy, this creation of safe habitat, it stabilizes entire vertebrate populations across the landscape.
Okay, I see why you emphasize the architecture. I really do. But I come at it from a different perspective, one that's really rooted in foundational ecology. The functional regulation the aardvark performs, it's paramount because it stabilizes the ecosystem from the ground up. Just consider the sheer volume. It's consuming an astonishing 50 to 60,000 insects, mostly termites, in a single night. Without that predatory pressure, you'd have unchecked termite populations, which would lead to, significant vegetation loss and local destabilization. It would collapse the very foundation that all those other species you mentioned depend on.
Right, and I acknowledge the scale of consumption is impressive, but how valuable is that momentary population control if the animal's physical structures, the burrows, are the only available safe havens for breeding competitors and secondary predators, particularly in areas that are susceptible to flooding or fire? The creation of a permanent resource of essential habitat is arguably a higher-order ecological service. It outlasts the immediate effect of consumption, and it impacts multiple trophic levels all at once.
That's a compelling point about the longevity, I'll give you that. Though I would frame the causation very differently. We have to look at the aardvark's unique evolution here. The ability to control termites isn't just incidental, it's directly linked to its very specialized physical adaptations, those immensely powerful spade-like claws designed specifically to tear through sun-baked mounds, and the thick skin that protects it from soldier termites. Its whole internal system, specifically that muscular pyloric region, acts like a gizzard, crushing all that chitin. Its evolutionary niche is defined by its consumption mechanics. The digging is just the necessary action required to fulfill its real mandate: pest control.
I'm not convinced that the architectural role can just be dismissed as a mere byproduct. Not when the sheer scale of that byproduct dictates the survival of so many other species. That scale is precisely what elevates it to a keystone status. It's a designer of its environment through, involuntary engineering. If it were just digging to eat, any specialized insectivore would do, but no other animal creates subterranean infrastructure on this scale. And we also have to consider the Aardvark Cucumber symbiosis. This is another singular interaction where the aardvark eats the fruit, not for calories, but solely for water, and in doing so, it becomes the primary disperser of the cucumber seeds. This shows a relationship that is architecturally and symbiotically critical, and it goes far beyond simple predation.
While the cucumber example is fascinating and it does highlight its complex role, focusing on seed dispersal or the utility of a burrow risks elevating a secondary outcome above the foundational necessity. The destruction prevented by removing millions of termites every single day is the constant, indispensable service. If the aardvark wasn't consuming termites at that rate, the ecosystem would rapidly destabilize, and it wouldn't matter how many abandoned burrows were available. That foundational control is maybe less visible than a 40-foot tunnel, sure, but it is intrinsically more critical to the health of the landscape.
I still maintain that creating a physical refuge offers a resilience against environmental stress. Fire, heat, predation that mere caloric cycling just cannot replicate. It guarantees reproductive success for other keystone species. This speaks to a profound shaping influence on the environment, not just a responsive consumption cycle.
Look, ultimately, while the case for the aardvark as an architect is undeniable, the evidence of its sheer consumption volume and the specialized adaptations required for that pest control suggests that maintaining ecosystem health through regulation is its core biological mandate.
And I remain convinced that its designation as a living fossil in a lone order emphasizes its unique design, which, well, it facilitates both roles at the same time. Its physical power shapes the environment just as much as its dietary needs regulates it. I think both roles show the aardvark's profound importance, and it really invites us to consider how species can balance multiple, sometimes competing, but equally critical ecological functions.